I know. Late to his own live stream. Doing great. Just get myself situated here. I didn't start yet, don't worry. I wish there was something I can play in the background. But my audio ducking isn't working. Sure. It's just you, me, and the audible chocolate that is my voice. So today, finally, after days of anticipation, I'm finally going to begin painting this thing. It's T-Rex skull, EVA foam, T-Rex skull, as the title implied. It's probably the best part of any build, or at least my favorite part of any build, is painting it. And my phone doesn't want to charge. Come on, hey, nope, that. Okay, okay. I haven't looked at this. I haven't looked this over too much. I haven't done anything since I primed it. 2 coats of primer with Bondo in between. And I think, yeah, I like it. It came out better than I thought, and it came out better than it deserved to. I haven't taken any of this tape off yet, and I'm kind of nervous. All the teeth are underneath here, and they were coated in smooth-on epoxy resin. So, and it's painter's tape, so they should be fine. But they were a lot of work, so I'm a little nervous. There we go. I haven't seen them in so long. Oh wow. It looks so much lighter compared to the primer, when they used to be darker compared to the EVA foam. Oh, look at that. That's cool. It's like my birthday, but it's not. Now, the teeth came out way better than they deserved. Oh. It turned out so good. That's pretty cool. I'm definitely not painting the whole thing today, but I am gonna get started on some base coating and some early layering. The photo that's on screen Below me is a photo. That is the exact fossil that started this. That is the fossilized Tyrannosaurus Rex skull. Most likely resin replica, but still fooled me. Saw that in the. I saw that at the. Was it Miami Museum of Natural History, I guess. And sorry, forgive me for not plugging it correctly. Saw that and I was just like, I can make it. I can make that. Look at that. I can make that. And here we are. So the lower jaw. It looks like it got a little warped. Just a little bit, probably from either the plasti dip or the primer drying. It was left out in the heat for a minute, so okay. And no, I did not paint the styrene washers that I put on the hinge because I didn't want to layer them up with unnecessary material, which will cause more friction in the hinge. So I left those unpainted, and if they're too unsightly, I'll just go ahead and hide them and paint them like a darker shade of whatever the rest of this is going to turn out to be. I'm not going for the color below in the picture of that particular replica because while that's the one that started it and that's going to be a good place to start, the fossil that I have in mind when I think of Tyrannosaurus Rex is the fossil that's on display at the Museum of Natural History in New York City, because that's the one I went to as a kid. So it's a little darker. It's more like coffee, maybe like in between coffee and walnut, which is probably hard to tell, but trust me, there's a difference. I haven't attached the jaw to this thing since I started working on sealing it, so that'll be fun to do. That's what I said, the Frost Museum of Science. Thank you for correcting me. It's the Frost Museum of Science in Miami, Florida. Sorry if you were waiting for me to notice that this whole time. There's a 10-minute delay. Okay. Ignore the weird piece that is going into that's attached to the lower jaw. That this hinge piece. Ignore it. It's getting redesigned. It wound up being a just not as good as I thought it was going to be. It's too long. I don't need that much material on it. Okay. There we go. Looks like it lines up pretty damn well. That was my biggest fear, was finishing the lower jaw, finishing the skull. I put a lot of time into making sure that everything lined up correctly, because even with that little bit of warping, I can tell it's a little bit off. You probably can't see it on camera. But yeah. Damn. 2-minute delay. All right. I thought I set it to 10. Thank you again. You know what's funny about this, looking at it now, is I can almost leave it like this because I appreciate the rat rod aesthetic. But no, I'm gonna paint it. I'll paint it. to start with, though. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I don't have a palette. I had one, but I got rid of it because it was like ancient and covered in probably 100 different projects worth of shading. I need an impromptu palette. I'm gonna mute the mic for just a second because you don't need to hear me rummaging around through. Okay, I'm back. A piece of cardboard is gonna have to do. It's not ideal, but it'll do. You're gonna have to forgive me for a moment. I haven't seen this thing reassembled yet. So the whole point of that extra like slidey piece covered in styrene on the lower jaw where it inserts into the skull, that was just so it could do this. These little guide pieces here that kind of go into or go onto the Chicago screw and kind of slot in. The whole point of that was to give extra material for the skull to separate itself over the jaw and close its mouth all the way. Because for the life of me, I could not find anthropologically accurate information on whether or not Tyrannosaurus rex could close its mouth all the way, because if you look at a lot of specimens of fossils of his skull, especially with the jaw intact, it doesn't look possible for him to close his mouth. And at first I thought it was just the 3D print I got, but no, it's most specimens. And you can see there's a, the jaw's got to come unhinged a little bit for him to close it. So that's what I did. It's going to be unnecessary. I have an older version of the hinge that will work just fine for this. All right, enough chit chat. Let's do this. I almost don't want to paint the teeth. They look too cool. This is going to be the only footage of the skull and the jaw with just the primer. So I'm kind of, I don't know, sentimental. Excuse me. Oh, I guess I could have left tape on the Chicago screw hardware. I think I'm going to put it back on. Or geez, just a little piece on each. Thank you. Appreciate it. You're not missing anything. Meticulously putting paint on. Tape. I haven't painted yet. Tape on. light base coat, very light base coat of, I have FX satin white. Or do I want to start with a light base coat? Well, I don't have to. So I'm not going for like a real bone, or, you know, this is going to be like a millions of year old fossil. So it's not even going to be real bone. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, I'm going to go for a darker. Where do I want to start? I know I need to darken the interior. So the nasal cavity, the cranium, this part's obviously going to stay light because you're going to be able to see it. But all the interior pieces where you can still kind of see they're just pieces of EVA foam glued together, that's all going to get darkened. And the same thing with like the interior of the lower jaw. I didn't hide any of my crimes in there because I had every intention of just shading them out, pretty much. So, that being said, oh, this is really light. Like, really light. What did I use all this on? I really don't remember the last project I used that paint on. Oh well. Let's do it. I think I'm just gonna go right in the jar here. Oh wow. Okay. And all the preparation I made for this, the one thing I neglected to check to make sure I had enough of paint. Sorry, 1 second. Hindsight being what it is, yes, it would have been a lot easier to just stick the nozzle of a rattle can in here. But I wasn't sure where I was going with the base coat, so I didn't want to go any darker than your average primer gray. Come on. But I'm not concerned with the appearance of this part other than it being shaded out. And I am taking full advantage of not needing to be careful with this yet. Full advantage. I'm also not looking to leave behind any obnoxious brush strokes. Also, if I did this with a rattle can, I'd be worried about drips. And I'm well past the point of wanting to do any more sanding on this thing. I'm pretty tapped out on sanding on this one. This was truly a I sand, I die, I sand again project. Don't remember when it started, and I don't remember seeing an end in sight. This will also give me a good opportunity to hide some of my crimes. There's some seams that got past me in the spot putty phase. Some crimes I couldn't hide. But I also kept in mind that this was most likely going to get painted a very dark color, so I wasn't that broken up about it. It's a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be. A lot of nooks and crannies. And if he didn't have all these convenient openings in his skull, I'd be out of luck. Looks awesome in there. I don't know if you can see in there, but it looks like venom exploded. I might come back to darkening the interior and start working on what we came here for. Just get a little more coverage, and I'll be satisfied. Listen, all right. Yeah, it's going to be time consuming. I knew that. what did we learn when we make something like this out of EVA foam? Make sure you get the interior real good with the plasti dip on the first run. I could have avoided this. That's whatever. Just shove it in his nose. Twist it around a little bit. Get some coverage. So messed up. I'm sorry. I don't feel right doing it. Yeah, that's a good technique. That's a professional looking technique right there. Terrible. I sand. Yeah, I sanded. I sand again. Yeah. Yes, time consuming. Very time consuming. Don't pay any attention to this brush. I was going to chop it up and make it a chip brush anyway. And I probably would have benefited from doing that first. I mean, at this point, I could just paint the whole thing black. I'm going to dry brush some bits. Or at least use the brush until I'm just dry brushing at that point. What finish is this? Smooth satin. Okay. Well, that's fine. Actually, looking at it in this light, I can kind of tell what the finish is going to look like as it's drying. And that might actually be the end finish I want to have for the whole thing. Kind of, you know, I mean, smooth satin, still glossy enough to catch the light, but not enough to look like it was clear coated. And depending on the finish that I can achieve with the paint that I have, will also determine whether or not I clear coat this, because I've heard both sides of the argument. Seal your props, don't seal your props. Clear coat your props, don't clear coat your props. Seal your paint job, don't seal your paint job. I'm on the fence. I think it's heavily dependent on the project and the material. And if it's going on your wall or something like this one, or if it's going to a con, All right, I'm going to start darkening outside. So I get a better contrast of any really... I'm not going to be able to get the entire interior with this. I'll probably have to go back with... I have an airbrush to test out. So that might actually be the perfect application for this. Like I said, the whole thing's definitely not getting painted this session, but okay, I'm not going to use any more black for this particular part, but damn. I'm going to do underneath and the occipital backplate. Something similar. I'm not like black, like shade black, but maybe a darker version of the brown that I want to use. Okay. It's a pretty good place to start. And then I just got to do the same thing on lower jaw here. Let me move this guy out of the way. Try and put him somewhere you can still see him. Ooh, wow. There's a lot of globs of paint in there. Hold on. Like a lot of globs of paint. I know what I'm doing, I promise. Yeah. Getting all the crevices and creases. There we go. Okay. That's better. I was like, why does that still look so wet? It's because there's just a glob of wet paint. The little hook thing on this is a problem. This little sucker for like, what's it called? Bucket buddies. There we go. Okay. Okay, that's it for that, I swear. I do have this Liquitex matte finish acrylic medium. Will this make the... I've never used medium for its intended purpose. Always just used it for other stuff. This extends paint, right? Reduces gloss, extends color, lowers viscosity, and increases transparency. For acrylic colors, medium only. Then with up to 25% water, or with airbrush medium. Add gloss medium for a satin finish. Good for blending. As a collage adhesive. I know, I was about to say, I know I've got one of these little cups somewhere. Gotta dump all the crap into something else. I'm gonna need more of that, and I don't have it. This reduces viscosity? Lowers viscosity. Liquitex acrylic mediums. I don't know how much to use. Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty cool. Oh, you know how many times I could have used this? You know how many other instances I could have used this? Especially when I started running out of, like, a custom color? What? I just quadrupled my paint, man. Learn something new every day. No, no, no. Lowering viscosity means it's less watery. An increase in viscosity means an increase in glide of slipperiness. Holy shit, look at that. That's awesome. I did not know you could do that. Actually. What's more likely to leave behind? Stuff. Little threads of this from I mean, it's microfiber, but still. Or paper towel. Not concerned with it right now. That's awesome. Oh, look at that. Look at this spread. Why does anyone buy more paint? You just do that. Does it dry faster, or can I just pour that back in the paint bottle? Sorry, I keep bumping into the mic. I gotta find a better spot for it, but I thought this was pretty clever, clipping it to my glasses. This is not supposed to be concave like this. It's supposed to be solid. But I thought it was not a waste of material, but I didn't think it necessary. But hindsight again, it's still, even with the support piece that I had in here and across here while fabricating it, still got a little flimsy. All right, so I'm gonna hit the hinges with some black paint now. This stuff doesn't appear to be too thick, which is why I was worried about putting layers of anything else on this, because they fit now, and when they were just dry unsanded EVA foam, they fit perfect, and then paint kind of made them a little bigger, and yeah, there was a little too much friction for my liking, so I didn't want to add any more paint to the hinge pieces, but I also don't want them noticeable, so it's kind of like which would you prefer? Still paint in it, but so much for reducing brush strokes. I'm gonna have to figure out something for brush strokes. Either a texture with a thicker paint. Dinosaur fossils are supposed to be, while they're technically rock, I think, right? Because carbon took the place of the bone over time. But almost like making a mold of it, it kept the smoothness of bone. So I'm not trying to make this look like it was painted with a cheap chip brush, because that's exactly what it was painted with. But if I just give it a little tappy tap, that does kind of blend away brush strokes a bit, or at least knock them back. And then I can come in with a layer of another color later and kind of smooth it over. Yes. Okay. Well, I knew my hands were getting dirty today. I don't know why I'm worried about it. And just like that, you would never know. This part, at least, was painted with a brush. And this is still going to dry with a pretty smooth texture, but it'll keep the finish that I want if I don't go over it. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna switch brush sizes. Oh, yes. I'm gonna switch brush sizes. I gotta get some of the paint off of this brush. Hmm. Okay, yeah, smaller brush. Sorry. Just... Anyone else smell smoke? No? Anything coming out of my ears? Okay, good. Give me one moment. Okay. Just checking some of the technical stuff. I'm gonna use a smaller brush on the teeth because I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, but there are some very fine lines cut into each tooth. The EVA foam and then expanded with the heat gun. And I don't want to lose any of that detail, so I'm going to go over each brush. I'm going to go over each tooth very carefully with the black. And I like the look of the black fossilized teeth on the specimens. Here, let me see. Will it let me make this bigger without messing anything up? Yeah. But just for now, if you look at this picture, the teeth are like carbon, like black. So anyway, that's what I want to go for. I think they look cool. So that's what I'm going to do. So, and this is the only black I have. Yeah. Okay. Well, I chose not to hit these with a primer for a reason. Because I didn't want to lose any of the detail. Well, actually, you know what? It's not sticking to the epoxy resin as well as I thought it was gonna. It's a little transparent over it, but it kind of looks cool. You can just kind of see the color of the EVA foam underneath. That might actually work. It might be onto something. I mean, I totally knew it was going to look like that before I painted it, and yeah. This also give me a good opportunity with the smaller brush to get into the hard to reach places in between the teeth. I don't want to see a single spot of primer gray by the time this is done. It's got Bondo dust in his gums. Terrible. Eh, nah. Probably just gonna put two coats on them. I could use a really light wash, and I could hit the teeth with a light wash. Maybe after getting sealed, and could get some of the lighter color into some of the cuts of the teeth, and that might actually be a cool contrast, because there were plenty of pictures that I saw doing research for reference photos. Some of the fossilized teeth had white pieces of material kind of exposed, like almost like um, enamel chipping off and being replaced. Some of those lines of whatever process takes place, they were really, really light compared to the rest of the tooth. So adding that kind of contrast to this is a thought. Can y'all see what I'm doing? Or do I need to move the light? I keep glancing over. I can't tell if you can see it or not. Eh, not really any better. Okay. Damn, this is going to take some coats. Just realizing now how poorly this particular finish is covering. Side Effects is a great paint brand. I've used them a lot. But you do have to be a little specific with what you're applying it to. Every now and again, I get a little bit of glimpse of orange Bondo peeking through. Going thin and slow with this. Oh, I feel bad now. You know why it's going on thin is because I added it's the medium. That's why. It's transparent. Or it's considerably less opaque. Can't stress enough how much I don't want to lose any of the detail on the teeth. Too much work went into each of these damn things to lose even one hairline fracture. Blend this, make sure there's no paint line when I go over it. Yeah, the dark paint. Psh, what crimes? Like I'm okay with EVA foam, but there was some glaring seams on this. Definitely took away from the illusion that it was a real fossil. Mm. Yeah, see, that's what I'm worried about missing. It's kind of hard to tell on there, but I can see it. It's the smallest gaps underneath each tooth. Yeah. Gotta hide. No gaps, no spots. Not a bit of this not covered in paint. Some kind of color. All right. Just gotta get some to reach spots under here. Hide some more crimes in there. I gotta watch my paint blobs. No paint blobs here. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I'm so shaky. There. Anything of that? That's pretty cool, huh? I really hope you can see the detail on some of those teeth, man. I went a little overboard with the teeth. I can't wait to edit that footage. You have no idea. Okay. Moving right along. wanted to do those ones first because these teeth, these are like the centerpiece of the whole build. Like even unpainted, this thing looks just pissed. It's just vicious, man. Alright, I'm going to start with the gums on this one and get all the nooks and crannies before I start painting upward. Get all the pigment I can in there first, which is what I should have done on the lower jaw. I'm a little out of practice. It's been a while since I've finished a prop. If this was not a fossil, if this was anything else, the remains of a modern animal, it kills me to paint this like this, because if this was any other skull, I would have hit these with a light coat of white, just to kind of get rid of some of the yellow tint of the resin, and that would have been it. I would have put a dirty wash on them, maybe a little bit of blending at the gum, and the detail that's in that's cut into the foam would have done the rest. And it kills me to not be doing a dirty wash on them right now, and actually this is actually adding color. It's going to be like the base color for each of these. It's just like watching the detail go away. For now, for temporarily disappear. Doesn't feel right. Spreading that paint along the tooth from the gum before it dries so it doesn't accumulate, and add unwanted detail to the piece. The fossilized teeth are kind of blended into the skull to a point, but I still want there to be, I still want it to be obvious that the teeth are their own thing. They're not just a part of the skull, like the skull came out of a mold. I'm trying to keep this from looking like what it is as much as I can. By the end of this stream, I hope to have the entire surface of the skull and jaw covered, at least in a first base coat, and maybe the first layer of paint. So no fancy mixes yet. No meticulous blending and coloring yet. Just laying the foundations for all of that. And also trying to think ahead. I haven't put a huge amount of thought into the paint job because I know it kind of... Sorry. The way I paint, anyway, I usually start with something in mind. But by the time I'm done, I've usually kind of added onto it. So, start simple. And wait until the project has momentum to start getting complicated. I definitely know for sure I wanted a dark brown. I know for sure I don't want it the same shade of brown as the reference photo that's on screen right now. Because that T-Rex skull, no offense to the museum, is the same shade as some of the stuff my dog makes in the morning. So, not really about it. Oh, it looks so good as is. Like if this was like a skull that you pulled out of the dirt in the forest, I would just do this. This would literally just this one pass of black and maybe a clear coat to bring the gloss back. That's how it goes, I guess. Damn. Yeah. A little too much paint. If I see the streak of light reflecting from the paint because it's blobbed up like that, that's a no-no. Gotta get rid of that. No blobs. Because at least this is not, it's not like the primer where like if I do get a blob of acrylic, I can take a X-Acto blade or something, just kind of get rid of it, but trying to avoid that the first time around. A fun side effect of the amount of research I did in looking up reference photos and just overall construction of the skull and why certain parts of it are the way they are, which parts of the Tyrannosaurus Rex skull, because it's so iconic and because it's so embedded in pop culture, everyone like focuses on the stardom of it, but we really do like forget to like take a step back and be like, no, this isn't. It has like Godzilla, King Kong status, but this thing was real. This thing existed, and this thing could kill you. Do I have the? I got some reference material that really went into the anatomy of the T-Rex skull. Scary. Each one of these teeth, I think the longest was like 8 inches long. This bad boy or this bad boy. They're like 8 inches long average. There was anywhere from 40 to 60 of these things in every mouth. Juvenile. Thank you. The juveniles weren't as dangerous, apparently, but they actually looked a lot different and had different skull structure, but that's besides the point. They had 60 of these things in their mouth on average. And my favorite description of T-Rex teeth are murder bananas. And the reason for that is because the T-Rex tooth was not completely tapered and like sharply angled on the edges. They were kind of blunt to the naked eye. And they also weren't sharply tipped. Like they were tipped. There was for sure. They were for sure designed for piercing. But because of the blunt shape and the thickness of each tooth, they were designed to like cut into flesh and everything, because there were tiny serrations on the edge of each tooth, front and back, if I remember. But they weren't really designed for just taking a small piece of meat off of a bone. The reason these teeth were shaped like that, blunt, almost like serrated torpedoes, was because these teeth were meant to pierce bone and take not only the meat, take the bone, tendons, muscle, everything. And like, yeah, you've seen Jurassic Park, like you've seen them attack the cars and stuff, but even Jurassic Park is as terrifying as Rexy is, and that's the T-Rex's name in Jurassic Park, the Jurassic Park series Rexy. I'm pretty sure that T-Rex survives until like the very end. The hell was I saying? Teeth. Yeah. Pretty gnarly. Okay. I think that's a good start on the teeth. Right? Yeah. It's just the base coat, so I'm not worried about scuffing it up. Since I have all this black, though, I think I am going to take advantage of it. Clean this brush. Yeah. So the underneath and the back side of the skull, no one's ever going to see it. I knew it. I knew it when I was making it. No one was ever going to see it, and I still made it this complicated. Like, that's EVA foam, man. This entire structure, EVA foam, all of it. I mean, I'm sure you can see some of the seams that I left behind. But yeah, you can imagine the bevels during the construction of the template. After pulling the pattern off of the 3D print to make the templates for this, I began to realize that this prop is going to have the most bevels that I've ever cut in a project to date. And I know you don't know this about me, but I am terrible at cutting bevels in EVA foam. Luckily, though, I had help. While cutting the pieces for this, I jokingly started calling it Bevelsaurus. Because every single piece, and I mean every single piece, has anything but a straight edge. And before I forget, hold on. I brought it up for a reason. Rocket props. The bevel. It bevels all. Thing's awesome. This was the first project I got to try it on, and it was perfect because, I mean, look at it. Rocket props knocked it out of the park. And it's super awesome that he developed something. He saw a need and he filled a need, and he developed something that's for such a niche use. It's such a niche purpose. I mean, you can cut a bevel into anything with it, but its primary purpose is for EVA foam and the like. But such a cool tool. Such a cool dude. Such ingenuity. I can really appreciate seeing a problem like that and coming up with such a cool solution, such a handy solution. It makes you think like, huh, I mean, like, you know, you put your mind to it, coming up with something like that, something useful like that, you know. Sure, if anyone looks hard enough, they can find a need. They could develop something to fill, solve someone else's dilemma. I don't think I'm gonna get paint in the little housing bits for the hinge here, just because. Just enough so that you can't see the primer when the jaw's open. And just a little bit of blending, and that's it. I went from not putting a base coat on the back to painting like most of the skull black as a base coat. That's fine. I would rather paint over this with the shade of dark brown that I'm thinking of going with than starting off with a white base coat. No brush strokes, please. I think just a little more on the edges here. This isn't going to be like masked off and cut off the actual pigment that I want to use. It's going to be blended in with this. Okay. I got to take a little bit of that paint off. A little too blobby. Just do a little blending. This little eggshell texture I'm making with the bristles of this brush, the way it's the way the light is reflecting off of the smooth satin is doing a great job of hiding these seams. My crimes are getting covered right up. Obviously not that center one because I didn't sand it at all, but the rest of it, pretty good. Cool. Next, I gotta do something about this brush. There we go. I did something. Probably should have gotten a bigger cup. Next, I guess we can start working with browns. Can I get this back in? Can I? Is that a thing? Come on, it hasn't been that long. Paint's already starting to gum up a little bit. Mm. Mm. There's a lot of paint I don't want to let go to waste. Yeah, right. That worked. It got so gummy. Why did it get so gummy? Let's just jump right in and start mixing stuff. How we looking? Okay. We can put a base of brown on. Yeah. We're gonna put a base of brown on. And ironically it's gonna look like the reference photo I got down here probably. I've got burnt sienna. Burnt sienna Liquitex heavy body acrylic. The only reason I bought this paint and the burnt sienna specifically is because SKS Props turned me on to Liquitex heavy body, and I thought it was funny because he uses burnt sienna and there was another one all the time, and I was just like, what is it about these paints, man? And I got a tube and I'm like, all right, cool, I get it, good acrylic. So you got this burnt sienna here, right? And then you got this tube of, you got this bottle of Craft Smart. I think I've had this bottle of paint since I was like 12 years old. Let's see if there's a date on it. No. I thought there was. It's from Michael's though. So let's see. About that much burnt sienna. And this is espresso. Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, get in there. Right in there. And let's get some medium in there. Make it go a little further, right? Don't worry, I'm putting a cap on this when I'm done with it. I'm going to save it. That's a good start. I'll work with that for now. Do I have a better? I might have a better brush. Yeah. Another cheapo chip brush. Nothing fancy. But there's some medium, there's some espresso, and there's some burnt sienna in there. And obviously the black is really gonna tone it down, hopefully, which is why I didn't add a lot of brown. Because I knew once I mixed in, oh wow, it's actually overpowering the. Okay. That's like a nice clay brown. Yeah. Here, hold on, let me do the whole. So anyway, I like this shade. I think you guys are gonna like it too. Sorry. Brush better not break on me partway through. Okay. So pretty much everywhere that I didn't try to shade in, obviously, is what we're going to go for. Might start with the lower jaw, actually. And before I even put any of that paint on this, I'll just make sure there's nothing. I'm going to put a fingerprint in. It actually dried pretty quick, which is nice. Okay. Yeah, cool. Lower jaw is good. Still a little wet, but nothing too bad. First layer is the best. First layer, you can just be like this. You can just go nuts. Make sure all the primer gets covered. All those details I burned in with the wood burner, hot knife thing, and the Dremel. This will be a good start. And then the next layer of brown is probably going to be, no, the next layer of brown is going to be darker. Kind of has to be. Foolishly started with a little more paint on the brush than I probably should have. But I want to at least get this side covered before I dip in again. Yeah, no, this is a pretty good color, right? Freaking love it. Freaking baby diaper brown. Okay. Now I just gotta go over this whole thing. Very slowly. Every bit of the surface. Break up those brush strokes. I cannot see one blasted brush stroke on this thing by the time I'm done. Also, blue, just lightly blended, not going crazy, not going super, super fancy with the blending or anything. It's just blotching. I would just want to make sure all the primer is covered. And then I also want to make sure that there's a good overlap and a good transition between the primer gray, whatever shade of black you want to call that, and my Willy Wonka brown. Let's just say that. Next side. A good start. Good start. Don't hate it. Normally this early in the paint job, I'm like, I don't know about it. I don't like it. I don't like it. But surprisingly optimistic about this one. Just want to take this opportunity to thank you for sticking around this far. And if you want to see more of this, and you want to know when I'm going to be working on this project and other projects like it, you can go ahead and subscribe to this here YouTube channel. And go ahead and flick on that little bell icon, and you can add me to the list of anxiety-inducing notifications that you receive every day on your phones. You don't have to. I don't want to add to any of that stuff that you're already dealing with. You don't need a pop-up from me in addition to all the other stuff you got to deal with every day. I'm just happy if you pop in here every now and again. Or if you only popped in here the one time, whatever, it's cool. I'll see you around. But thank you. Either way. Yo, this I just thought of something and now I can't unsee it. This is gonna age me terribly, but y'all remember Joe Dirt, David Spade, Joe Dirt, Whamburger, some French fries. You remember the meteor that he finds, or at least what he thinks is a meteor, and it really turns out to be a frozen boulder of airplane lavatory relief. Yeah, that's the color I got. Don't know how, but I got it. But yeah, that's what it reminds me of, and now I can't unsee it. So the sooner I get a darker layer on this, the better. And you can join me next time to see what that layer looks like. Like, as much time that went into the construction of the prop, the color palette is not complicated. It's gonna be, maybe, if I had to speculate what the color grade, 3, maybe 4 shades of brown and earth tones and shades of black, and that's it. That's the whole palette. So like, really doesn't get any easier than that. But even with a palette that simple, if I go too dark, it's gonna look weird. It's gonna take away from the detail and the texture and the finish. If I put the wrong finish on in the end, then you're going to lose all that detail. If I, if I choose a color that's just looks a little too unnatural, then that's another thing to consider. So I'm going to be thinking about all that, but see how that's drying. That side looks dry compared to poopy. So it does get darker, and completely by accident, we did get, let me try and put it right next to it, ish. We did get kind of, it's a little darker. It's a little darker than that specimen, but that's what I wanted to do anyway. I didn't want it to be that lighter brown anyway, and this is just a base. I just hope I didn't put it on too heavy. I know one side is wet and the other one is dry, but that one looks significantly lighter. I hope I mixed the paints thoroughly. I'm totally professional. Okay. Continuing the fun part. I'm gonna try to keep up with that. I'm gonna keep the fun stuff after. All right, before I put any more paint on, I gotta know there's some underlying darker shades. I can't believe I learned something new today. I bought that medium for something completely different. I think it is darker. I think it is darker. I think one side of that jaw is a little lighter than I thought it was going to be. But I'll get this bit spread on and then take a closer look. No, I don't want to go into the cavities that I just went through all that trouble of filling in with pigment to make it look less noticeable. Oh my god, I can't wait to get layers on this and start dry brushing and washing, and it's going to be really subtle and you might not notice the changes in the in the shades of brown and whatever, but it's still going to do it anyway. Okay, before I go any further with that shade, it's going to hit on top of it with this darker one. Oh, no. It looks pretty much the same. Okay. Maybe it just dries darker. Hope that's the case. spread it. It's a little thick. Oh, dude, I can't wait to start dry brushing. The best part. And then I'm gonna have to mask off the teeth. The final touches on this is going to be differences in finishes. This very light sheen. I think it's like a satin finish on the fossils naturally, but the teeth are actually pretty smooth. So what I'm thinking is, when I get to the point of adding another layer to the teeth, is either I'm going to go in and put on a high gloss clear coat by hand with brush and patience, or I could say the hell with that and just mask it off and hit it with a clear coat rattle can. I haven't decided yet, and I'm probably not going to until we obviously get closer to that point. But I rarely say this about my own stuff, but I am liking what I'm seeing so far. And I mean it. I really don't say that about I really don't say that about my own stuff too often. But it's looking pretty good. So I'm going back in because I didn't put a lot of like carving and stuff. This whole top piece right here stands out just because there's not a whole lot going on. But there's not a whole lot going on in real life with the top of his head anyway. So I'm going to try to do what I can to divert some of the attention from it and work on the texture and maybe shading will definitely help with that. Something so satisfying about dry brushing over a dark base coat. Like, look, okay, so see this part and this part. I'm not gonna put any additional paint on the brush, but I am just gonna kiss it a little bit with some brown. Same with this. Barely any paint on the brush. And it's such a cool effect. It makes something so unnatural look natural, even if only at a glance. I'm not too worried about where this base coat is going to go because like I'm going to touch up the inside and everything's going to get another shade of something. So really just focusing more on getting rid of all signs of the primer. Really the main goal for this first session, this first layer. Just completely hiding the primer. That was a lot of paint. Oopsie. Be careful not to go too far into the nasal cavity. I would rather not have to go back in with more black and darken the inside of the skull, but if I have to, I have to. Yeah, that's going to be unavoidable in some spots. That's okay. I'd rather have to go in there and try to cover up the wrong shade of brown than go in there and try to cover up more primer when I'm already like 3 layers in. That would not be pleasant. I'm trying to spread the paint around a little bit too, because I'm noticing I'm building some up in spots where it'll take away from some of the detail work I did. That's better. And like I could leave it at this shade with this amount of blending and call it at that, and just add maybe one more layer of brown just to clean it up and make sure there's no spots that I missed. And I see a lot of other prop skulls, prop dinosaur skulls. This really very similar shade of brown. And I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go a little darker, which is what you wouldn't think for a prop. A darker shade of brown is what you would think of like when you go to a museum and you see a specimen in a case. And I really, when this is on display somewhere, and if you decide to make this and you've got it on display somewhere, I really, the ideal response to this when it's done is that at first glance someone sees it for the first time, or they come over and it's like on top of like it's on my desk, or I've got it on a shelf or something, and I haven't figured out how I'm gonna display it yet, but I'm gonna work on that. or think of something. But I want this at first glance to really sell the idea that I could afford a much smaller but still just as badass a skull as Dwayne The Rock Johnston. Ah, no. Slipped. We're good. This brown didn't go as far. Put this brush through the ringer, but that's okay. The next time you see it, it'll look brand new. You'll never know. And it definitely won't be a different brush, and I definitely will not have thrown this one out. Okay, I do need to kind of like straighten it out a little bit. That's what I get. Just hitting all the spots that it looks like the paint went on a little heavy. And blending a little more where it needs to be blended more. Yeah, there's some spots that I missed with the first layer of black, but that's okay. I expected there to be a pretty significant sized punch list before this thing is like done anyway. Which I'm fine. I'm fine with having to go back and touch some stuff up before glamour shots or any of that stuff, or publishing videos, whatever. That's fine. I'll do all I can handle all that. It's as long as there's absolutely no more sanding. If I don't have to do any more Bondo work on this, then I'm happy. Speaking of, I think that's gonna do it for the first layer. What do you think? Huh? Didn't look like that when we... Uh-oh. Really? I've recorded for so much longer. That's strange. I'm using an external battery too. Bummer. Hold on. Stand by. Yeah, okay. It's warm. It's very strange though. I've definitely recorded over 3 hours before. That's a bummer. Just as I was finishing up, if I finished 10 minutes earlier, I would have been able to show you a great shot of this. camera couldn't stay with me for 10 more minutes. But that's it, I think. Pretty sure. Before we go. Come on. Why did I put the tape on like that? Why? That's so weird. The camera hasn't overheated that fast in so long. And I've done like 3-4 hour sessions with it on. Today's just one of those days, I guess. Before we go. It's probably a terrible idea, but I can't help myself. I'm impatient. And my inner child is just like, do it. Put it together. Alright, so I'm not gonna get the guide all the way into the hinge, but holy shit. Here. Hold on. I'm not done yet. Yeah. Look at it. Ah, I'm breaking stuff. Right? Yo. What? And it's not even done yet. But look at it, man. That turned out way better than it deserved to. And it weighs next to nothing. Crazy. I'm impressed with myself, and I don't say that often. Like, come on, man. That's even as is, that's convincing. Ish. Right? But that's what I mean when I want it to be a shade darker, because I feel like a shade darker is a little more realistic. I feel like this is good for, you know, I'm trying to avoid, for lack of a better way to describe it, I'm trying to avoid children's museum prop quality. You know, like the stuff that we used to see at like the science museum when we were little ones. But it was like the fossil, but it was like, you know, made out of some kind of really easy to sculpt material, and all the sharp edges were rounded and it was baby proofed, and you hit your friend over the head with it and it was made of foam or something kind of like this, but for educational purposes, whatever. Weird tangent. But right. Okay. Well, make this on Is It Cake. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you sticking around for as long as you did. Like I said earlier, if you want to see more stuff like this and you like what I'm doing, hit that notification bell and you'll see when I'm online next, or don't. That's fine too. Like I said, I don't want to add to any more of your dings throughout the day. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next time.